welcome. I am so glad you are here. This is my channel where we talk about everything related to money and having a balanced lifestyle, because I think the two definitely should go hand in hand. So before we go any further, please go ahead and like this video, subscribe below so that you get future notifications on when these videos are posted. I want to start off by being really real. I've been married for 3 years now, and if you're watching this video, chances are you want a better relationship with your spouse or your significant other, not just to get them on board with your finances, but finances intermingles with every area of our lives. So that's why this topic is so important and why I am so passionate about couples working together and being on the same page, because it's going to strengthen your marriage. It's not just going to be something where your financial situation improves. It's going to be a lifestyle change and a lifestyle improvement. So just putting that out there, I know I've only been married for 3 years, but one of the biggest things that has been a game changer for our relationship is that we are on the same page with our money. And a couple months into getting married, we actually combined our finances and we started aggressively paying off $67,000 worth of debt, which we did over the span of the next 2.5 years. And through that time, we would not be here today if we weren't working together on this. So if you're someone currently who one person is kind of on board, the other person is not, and you're watching this video to hopefully get to the point where they will be able to get on board, let's go through some questions and hopefully it'll help you guys start having the conversations that need to happen in order for that to take place. So a lot of what getting on board with your spouse is going to look like financially comes back to the basics of just asking questions. But one of the first things that needs to happen is that you need to dream together. You need to be able to communicate to each other what your priorities are, what you're working towards, or why the habits are in place that are there. So if they're not able to stick to a budget, or they're just really into spending spontaneously, those are things that we'll get into. But first and foremost, it's so important to be able to dream together. Think of a few things that you want to be able to do in the next year. So those are on the front end, what you can be working towards that are not way out in the distant or in the future. Or, like you're not going to start talking about retirement immediately, because that might not be something that's actually going to motivate them to make the changes that need to happen in the short term. You're going to work up to that together. So when you're talking about your dreams, do they align? Just ask if they are in alignment with what you both want. And if they're not, maybe come to a compromise or talk through things that bits and pieces of each other's goals that you can both go for at the same time, and figure out a plan that's going to work for you. But make sure that you have at least a couple things that you are working towards together that you both really want to have and enjoy as a part of being financially responsible. Once you've established that you guys have dreams, you've started things off on a really good note, and the intention is to be able to work towards those dreams, not like, why do you never stick to the budget? Why do you go out and spend money without telling me? Like those things are not going to promote change, and that's not how anybody wants to be talked to, right? So one of the first things in order to help the person understand where you're coming from is to ask, do they actually know your financial situation? Are they informed about how much is in your checking, your savings, your retirement, how much debt you have, what those current balances are? Are they informed about why you're stressed out or why you're feeling like you want to have some changes made in how you spend? So having the information at hand is honestly one of the biggest things that people aren't really aware of their current situation. So there's not anything that's triggering them to get stressed out or to make a change. There's nothing that's motivating doing anything different than they've always done. Another question that can fall under, do they know what your financial situation looks like, is have they looked at the budget that you've created, if you have created one, and do they agree with it? Do they think it's realistic for what you put down versus what they want to do, or the reality of your living expenses, or how much you're saying that they should be able to spend on personal things, or their hobbies. Make sure that it's realistic, and make sure that they're seeing a budget that is laid out so that they get an idea of the reality of your situation. But ask them, do they actually agree with it? You have to start there. That's not something that you can move past. If they're just totally not in agreement and you're expecting them to live by the spreadsheet that you've created, that's just not going to work because they haven't agreed. Usually when there's resistance with someone, it means that there just needs to be the right question asked to where they're able to express what they're actually thinking or feeling or frustrated with, and that's where you're going to get somewhere. So if there is resistance, keep asking questions, keep figuring out a way that's going to make sense to them, and how you guys can come together. A few other questions you could ask is this too drastic for you? Is this something that you think is possible? Do you think our dreams are practical or realistic or plausible? Or does it feel like paying off debt or doing this plan is unachievable? Does it feel like it's not going to happen and that's why you're not motivated? What is it that is keeping them from truly being with you in this process, or even just with making minor changes to have a better financial plan and management process? What is it? One of the things that I had to learn with my husband is totally on board, but he definitely enjoys the present much more than I do in a lot of ways, and I love that about him. But that also means that he's a little bit more spontaneous, and he can justify making spontaneous expenses more than I can. And I don't think that's something that you should totally take away, but come to an agreement of what's actually going to be realistic, what's going to be enjoyable for our lifestyle in terms of giving freedom for certain spending to happen and not just cutting everything out. The last thing I would recommend doing is finding the root cause. So this is multi-layered, right? It's not going to be super straightforward, but again, it comes back to asking questions and not coming in with an accusatory or an attitude of it's all their fault and that's why things are not working, or it's why you're stressed out, or you're late on bills, or not able to make your minimum payments on credit cards, student loans, or you haven't been able to move into a house yet. Whatever it may be, ask questions. Don't accuse them of being the one who's the reason why you're not able to do the things that you've been wanting to do. The last thing I want to talk about is making sure that you are coming from a place where you're doing everything possible in order to help them succeed as well. I know it can be really hard to do things on your own, especially when that other person maybe is just totally going off the handle, or just doesn't really seem to care, and they're not listening, or they don't want to engage in these kinds of conversations. Don't get discouraged. Make the changes that you can make. Make it as easy as possible for them to see, hey, this is what it looks like when we actually stick to our grocery budget, or we don't go eat out, or these are the alternatives of what we can do to still have an enjoyable life without putting money on the credit card, maxing it out, and being afraid that we're not going to be able to pay it off, or just thinking that that's not something that we can have in the future, because that's not true. You can, and you can reach those goals. And I just want to encourage you to not give up. If you are the person that feels like you're kind of dragging your spouse with you, keep doing the things that they are going to be able to notice. Oh, she has extra spending money. Where did that come from? What is that? How did you do that? Or little things will start to compound, and it may take a little while for someone to get on board. But if they're able to see an example by you of you following through with what you said you're going to do, then that's going to be communicated to them. Maybe that's something where you're able to start having those conversations if you haven't before.